Hello, my name is Rob Garner. I'm a computer programming instructor, and today I'm going to demonstrate using Maya to build 3D assets for Unity. So let's take a look at our Maya interface. What you see primarily in the front here is the view panel. And the view panel will be where our 3D model will show up and where we can rotate and zoom in and out and manipulate it so that we can work with it. Maya also has on the right a channel box and a layer editor, which we will learn more about as we learn each of the commands. There's a toolbox here which uses some of the more common tools. The select tool. Notice that as I hover over each of these tools, I sometimes get a shortcut key, which is this W. So the move tool, the rotate tool, which is E, and the scale tool are some of the more often used tools. And you'll notice that those keys, W, E, and R, are located on the upper left side of the keyboard. So they're selected to make it convenient for you to get to them quickly. The select tool is Q, so Q, W, E, and R are the primary tools over here on the left. The last use tool will also be displayed over here towards the bottom once we start picking different tools. Down at the bottom, you have this timeline looking window with some DVR controls. This will be used for animation later. And at the top, very importantly, you have the mode select dropdown. By picking this mode select dropdown, you'll notice that the menus change. And each menu is optimized, or these menus are optimized for the particular task listed here. So modeling, rigging, animation, rendering. These will be where you select. You'll select these based on what task you're doing at the time. And so since we're going to be modeling first, we'll pick modeling. We have a number of tabs here at the top, and these tabs give us access to various tools. In particular for modeling, we will be using this polygons tab to be able to add primitives to our scene. And there's a number of tools up here we will use quite extensively when modeling polygons. You have the same functionality up above here. For example, I could create a cube using the polygon primitives under the Create menu. The advantage of this one is if I click on these little boxes, I get a dialog that comes up. Whereas if I just click here, it won't bring up the dialog box. And these tool settings allow us to make a number of changes. So we can set the number of divisions. If I just use the defaults that are currently set there, we'll see that we get a cube, which is basically has one face all the way around. If I were to create a cube with the menu, I could set the number of divisions. Let's say I wanted 4 divisions, or usually I like odd numbers. We'll make odd number of divisions and we'll create this cube. And we can see that now we have a cube which is subdivided in 5 sections all the way around. To view our objects, we have a number of navigation tools. So if I use the scroll wheel, I can zoom in and out. And if I hold down the Alt button and use the left click, it will tumble the camera, and I can rotate around my object. If I hold down the Alt and hold the middle mouse button, I can drag my object up, down, left, and right. And Alt right mouse button will zoom in and out, just like the scroll wheel. Another thing we can do is change our view panel. We have view panel choices over on the left. We can have an orthographic views, where we have the front, the top, the right, and then the perspective view. The perspective view are tools for dragging and moving the object around in the view work the same. In the orthographic views, they work a little differently. You can really only move them in 2 dimensions. Since this is a cube, it looks the same in all 3 views. You can switch to any one of these views full screen by placing your cursor over the one you want to look at and hitting the space bar. The space bar will jump back and forth between these views, and you can pick which one you want to work with full screen just by making sure your mouse is over the one you want to work with. In selection mode, you can select objects. So if I click off of the object, it deselects it. If I click on it, it selects it. In the move mode, we get these grab handles, which we can use to move our object up, down, left, right. If you grab the center, it'll move it in a plane parallel to your view plane. Control Z is always useful to bring yourself back to where you were initially. The rotation tool allows you to rotate along different axes. There's a axis which is also parallel to your camera, and that one always remains as a yellow circle, which is always pointing directly at your view. The final control is the scaling tool, which allows us to change the width and height of our object. If you scale from the center, you'll notice that it scales everything all at once. If you grab some of these these square boxes in a particular plane, it will scale along just that plane. And you can see what's in yellow right now is the only things that are being modified. Over to the right in the channel box, notice that as we manipulate the object, we can see here I grabbed the X scaling tool and it's changing its numbers there. So in addition to using these handles, you can also precisely set these attributes using the text boxes here to the right. We can also use these to specifically position our object using the translate. And the rotate, we could precisely position our object using the rotations. The best way to learn these is just play around with all the different controls. We also have a right-click pop-up menu that when we hold down the right-click button, you'll notice that as long as you hold the right-click down, you can select these different options. So let's go to face selection mode. If I go to face selection mode, you'll notice that rather than selecting the whole object, I'm selecting individual faces on my object. I can also use a box selection to select multiple items. If I just wanted the very top of this, I could select this way. And you see it selected all the faces at the very top. If I deleted them, it would make an open container. So in addition to face selection mode, we also have edge selection mode, which will select individual edges. And by combining these tools, we can make our object look somewhat interesting or different. If I were to translate some of these up, we can see that we can manipulate how this looks. So for example, if I wanted to make this a little rounder, maybe I would select the edges here. And if I wanted to select complementary, if I want to keep that selection and add, I can hold down the shift and now it will add whatever I select. So shift selecting can be used to select multiple items at once. In addition to selecting edges, I can also select vertices. Notice that all the individual points on this cube are now highlighted. And again, I can box select a number of elements. If I selected too many, for example, if I didn't want these selections on the bottom, I can hit the control and you notice that a minus shows up. With the shift, it'll add to the selection. With a minus, it'll remove the selection. And I could either move these to make something that looks like this, or I could possibly use my scale tool and scale everything in or scale everything out. So just creatively using these tools allows you to do a lot of neat things. Sometimes it becomes necessary to snap. We would like to be able to snap things and align things precisely. We can use the snap tools that are located up here. For example, if I snap to vertices or snap to points, I could select all of these objects, go to move, and precisely align objects, line all of those back up with an existing vertice. Notice that what I did here was I wanted to align it just in this z-axis, so I grab the z-axis handle and then move it to whichever one I want to connect it to. You can also snap to grid. So if I want to move this whole thing up, or if I want to associate this or center this with the grid in the vertical plane, which is the Y plane, I could do this. Of course, in this case, it lined everything up. So that's probably not something I want to do. And so what I really want to do is go back to object mode, select my object, and then snap it to the grid. So between snapping to the grid and snapping to vertices, you can do a lot. There are other options: snapping to view planes, snap to projected centers, which will move if you were moving one object close to another, you would be able to snap it to the center of another object. And snapping to a curve, if you have a curve, you would snap that object to that curve. The ones you'll primarily use are snap to grid and snap to points. So just for a little demonstration, let's say we want to make this into a container. What I could do is oh, that's not what I wanted. I'll select these vertices, and what I'll do is I'll take half the vertices and I want to invert them and push them down so that it makes a box. So here I've selected the top vertices by box selecting them. And we need this interior to be slightly smaller, so a logical thing to do would be perhaps to scale it in a little bit. And we can invert. I don't want to snap to grid yet. And by selecting these and moving them approximately where I want them, I can get them lined up. So when you start working with vertices and they're inside of something else, it's useful to be able to see through what you're working with. You can do that by clicking on shading and click on X-ray, and now we can see our vertices inside, and probably I want these middle ones lined up with these outer ones, so I would like to click snap to points. Now if you don't want to have snap to points on continuously, you can do the same thing by clicking the X, C, and V key. So X would click to grid, the C would click to the curves, the V would click to vertices. I clicked B by accident. In any case, so now I'm going to need to reselect. I don't want the soft select. Let's tumble this up, make it a little bit, bring it back up here. And put it in a position. So I want to select all these vertices down in the middle and then snap them together. So probably the easiest way is go to the front view. Bring this up. Again, I will shade with the X-ray. And the nice thing about the orthographic view is if I just want to pick a particular row, then I can get all of them a little easier than I can in the perspective view because of the angles that this makes. So now I have this whole middle row. And to make them be at the same level, I can just hold down vertices and snap it to one of these points, and now they are perfectly aligned. Maybe I'll take this row here and just drop it a little bit. And again, I'll take this top row here and snap two vertices. I grabbed too many, but that's okay. I'll go into object mode, and there we have a box with interior space. And I'm going to go back to vertex mode and maybe extend this up. And there we have possibly some kind of container, or the inside of, or one side of a container. Another tool we can use is the soft selection tool. So any of these tools, if you double click on them, they'll bring up another menu. And here you can see I've got the select tool. If I click on soft select and select it, it gives me a number of choices here. And it really is, these are really options to shape the fall off. And we'll see what that is in a bit here. But as you notice, as I run my mouse over this object, you'll see that it colors the objects in this container from yellow to dark red. And yellow means that it's very much selected. And so I'm going to select two of these vertices. And now when I drag things forward, you'll notice that it moves things in proportion to the settings in the soft select. And so, for example, I could increase that and it would move almost all of them together, or I could decrease it and you'll see that it doesn't move. It moves only things that are very close to my selection. If I do it even more, we can see that it changes how much each of these other vertices are influenced by the movement in this one. And you can do this with any of the tools. So for example, here I could change the rotation, different degrees. And I don't know what I'm making here, but it's kind of cool maybe, or just kind of horrific looking. But using this, you can quickly move a number of vertices the same way all the way across. Maybe this will turn into some kind of roller coaster car or something. And of course, if you don't like what you have, just keep clicking Control Z and it'll bring you back to where you were before. So this concludes a general orientation to using Maya. Thank you very much.